William, a Vietnam War veteran, had spent the majority of his life haunted by the echoes of battle and the personal tragedies that followed him after returning home. The war had stolen much more than his youth. It had robbed him of his sense of peace, his sense of safety, and most importantly, his family. After returning from the war, William's life unraveled. He lost his wife under heartbreaking circumstances, and his son Lucas was torn from his life in a way that left him feeling helpless and alone. For years he searched for them, but his efforts were in vain. The trauma of war weighed heavily on him, but the unbearable pain of losing his family left him in a constant state of grief. As the years turned into decades, William's hope of ever finding his son seemed to fade. 40 years of unanswered questions wore down the once vibrant man. He wondered every day if Lucas remembered him, if he had even survived. He clung to memories of Lucas's laughter, the warmth of their time together before the war, and the hope that one day fate would intervene. Yet, as the years slipped away, the reality of the situation set in, and his hope gradually dimmed. He had lived with that hollow emptiness for far too long, yet in the darkest corners of his heart, there was still a flicker of belief that someday, somehow, he might find Lucas again. William's tragic story, one filled with pain and hope, was shared at a charity event aimed at raising awareness for veterans' causes. It was here that Barron Trump first heard of William's plight. Barron, despite his youth, had always been someone who understood the emotional toll of loss. Raised in a family that had its own share of struggles, Barron had seen firsthand how the emotional scars of war could ripple through generations. His empathy for William's situation was immediate, and he knew that if there was any way he could help, he would. Barron's skills in technology and his access to powerful resources became his greatest tools in this mission. He understood that with the right amount of effort, he could be the bridge between a father and son who had been separated for far too long. Determined to help, Barron embarked on the daunting task of finding William's lost son. He knew the search wouldn't be easy. The trail was cold, and time was not on his side. But Barron had one thing that William didn't: access to cutting-edge technology, a vast network of connections, and an unyielding sense of determination. Barron worked tirelessly, spending late nights combing through military archives, government records, and social media databases. He contacted private investigators, reached out to anyone who might have information, and followed every lead, no matter how small. Each day that passed brought him closer to the truth, but the fear that the trail would slip away again loomed over him. Days turned into weeks, and Barron's search grew more intense. There were times when it felt as if the trail was dead, but Barron refused to give up. He was driven by the thought of what this discovery could mean for William. Finally, after weeks of searching, Barron stumbled upon a lead. It was a man living in Florida, whose background seemed eerily similar to that of Lucas. Barron wasted no time verifying the details. The lead felt promising, but it wasn't until Barron arranged a DNA test that the breakthrough came. The results were nothing short of miraculous. The man in Florida was, in fact, Lucas. When Barron received the confirmation, he felt a wave of both disbelief and triumph. After so many years of searching, the truth had finally been uncovered. Barron immediately contacted William, who was both shocked and overwhelmed by the news. Barron arranged the reunion with great care. He knew that this moment had to be perfect, that it was a pivotal moment in both men's lives. He chose the White House garden as the setting, symbolizing the hope for renewal and the healing power of family. The day of the reunion arrived, and William stood in the garden, his heart racing with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. He had long dreamed of this moment, but had never truly believed it would come. Barron stood by his side, sensing the weight of the moment. Time seemed to stretch, each second feeling like an eternity, as they waited for Lucas to arrive. When the moment finally came, and their eyes met for the first time in decades, everything around them faded into the background. The world seemed to hold its breath. Neither man knew how to react at first. How could they? After all, they had both lived through so much. But then, slowly, almost instinctively, William reached out. His trembling hands met Lucas's, and in that instant, everything that had been lost, all the years of separation, seemed to disappear. They embraced, father and son, two souls reunited after decades of pain and longing. Barron watched from a distance, his eyes filled with tears as he witnessed this powerful moment. It was everything he had hoped for and more. In his heart, he knew that this moment would be life-changing for both men. Yet Barron also understood that while the physical reunion was important, the emotional healing was only just beginning. The journey toward healing, however, would not be as simple as they had hoped. William and Lucas were strangers in many ways. The years of separation had created barriers between them that could not be erased in an instant. Lucas had grown up without a father, and though he was overjoyed to finally meet the man who had been missing from his life, he couldn't erase the pain and confusion he had felt all those years. William, too, was faced with the painful reality that he could not simply pick up where they had left off. He had missed so much. Lucas's childhood, his first steps, his first words, those precious moments could never be recaptured. Barron, recognizing the complexity of the situation, continued to offer support. He reminded William and Lucas that healing would take time and patience. The bond that should have existed between them had been shattered by years of silence, and it would require work to rebuild it. Barron urged them both to take their time, to allow themselves the grace to learn about each other once again. He knew that the journey of reconnection would be slow, but he also believed that it was a journey worth taking. Over the weeks that followed, William and Lucas began to share their stories. William spoke about his experiences during the Vietnam War, how it had shaped him, how it had broken him, and how it had robbed him of his family. He opened up about the pain of not being there for Lucas, of the years he had spent searching for him, and of the emptiness that had filled his life. Lucas, in turn, shared his own struggles, growing up without a father, wondering what had happened to him, and learning to navigate life with that void. Their conversations were raw, emotional, and difficult, but they were the first steps in the long road to healing. Slowly but surely, they began to understand each other in a way they never had before. As William and Lucas grew closer, Barron continued to support them, providing encouragement and guidance. He witnessed firsthand the healing power of family, of love, and of forgiveness. Every small step they took toward each other was a victory. It wasn't easy, but with each conversation, each shared memory, the bond between them grew stronger. The love that had been hidden beneath years of pain began to resurface, replacing the bitterness and resentment that had once existed. The reunion between William and Lucas became a beacon of hope, not just for their family, but for veterans across the nation. Barron, inspired by the profound impact of this reunion, began using his platform to raise awareness for the struggles faced by veterans and their families. He advocated for more resources and support for those who had served, reminding the world that the scars of war didn't end when soldiers returned home. They lingered, sometimes for a lifetime. Barron's advocacy led to greater funding for veterans programs, including counseling, job training, and support for families. He used the story of William and Lucas to highlight the emotional, psychological, and social costs of war, costs that were often ignored. Barron's leadership sparked a national movement, one that emphasized the importance of supporting veterans long after their service had ended. His work reminded the nation that healing was possible and that no one should have to face their pain alone. As William and Lucas continued to rebuild their relationship, they both understood that the road ahead would not be easy, but they were committed to each other. The scars of the past might never disappear, but together they would face the future with hope. The reunion had rekindled a bond that had been lost for far too long, and while the healing process would take time, it was a process they were willing to embrace together. Through his work, Barron not only helped reunite a father and son, but he also ignited a movement that would continue to honor the sacrifices made by veterans. His role in this remarkable story had sparked a change that would reverberate for generations, reminding the world that no matter how long the journey, healing was always possible.